Admiral Catherine Hayes stood at the observation deck of New Geneva Station and watched another transport ship explode in the distance. The orange flame spread across the dark space for a few seconds before the vacuum swallowed them completely. She counted the escape pods launching from the burning vessel, but knew that most of the 3,000 civilians aboard were already dead. The Zephyrian Empire had been winning this war for 3 long years. Their ships were faster, their weapons hit harder, and they had more soldiers than humanity could ever hope to match. Every week brought news of another colony lost, another fleet destroyed, another million humans killed or captured. Earth's outer territories were gone. The middle colonies had fallen last month. Now the aliens were pushing toward the core worlds, and everyone knew it was only a matter of time. Hayes turned away from the window as her aide approached with another stack of casualty reports. Lieutenant Colonel Dan Murphy had been with her since the war started, and she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. They all looked like that now, the survivors who had been fighting since the beginning, tired, worn down, but still standing because someone had to. "Ma'am, the latest numbers from the Vega Defense," Murphy said, holding out his tablet. "We lost all 6 cruisers and most of the destroyer squadron. The colony ships got away, but barely." Hayes took the tablet and scrolled through the numbers. 6 more ships gone along with their crews. Captain Rodriguez on the Phoenix had been a good friend. Commander Walsh from the Defender had served under her years ago on the Europa mission. Now they were just names on a list, added to the thousands of others who had died fighting this war. "Any word from Admiral Chen's task force?" Hayes asked. "Still radio silence from the Kepler sector. It's been 4 days now." That meant Chen's fleet was probably gone too. 12 more ships, including the heavy cruiser Manhattan. Hayes closed her eyes and tried not to think about how many good people had been on those vessels. The math was simple and brutal. Earth started this war with 230 frontline warships. They were down to less than 50 now, scattered across a dozen systems trying to slow down an enemy that seemed to have an endless supply of ships and soldiers. Her communicator buzzed with an encrypted message. Hayes looked at the sender code and felt her heart skip. It was from Europa Station, using authorization codes that she hadn't seen in over 2 years. The message was short and direct. "Package ready for delivery. Requesting pickup coordinates." Hayes stared at the message for a long moment. The package was supposed to be their secret weapon, humanity's last desperate attempt to turn the tide of this war. She had helped design it herself, back when they still had time and resources for experimental projects, back when they thought they might actually have a chance to win. The USS Blackstar had been under construction for 5 years, hidden in the shipyards orbiting Europa. It was built using technology that Earth's scientists had reverse-engineered from captured Zephyrian vessels, combined with human innovations that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. The ship was smaller than a traditional battlecruiser but packed more firepower than anything in Earth's fleet. Its engines could fold space itself, allowing it to appear anywhere in a star system within seconds. Its weapons could tear apart matter at the atomic level. If the Blackstar worked as designed, it might give humanity a fighting chance. If it didn't, well, they were all dead anyway. Hayes walked to her command center and began typing authorization codes into the secure terminal. She was calling in the Blackstar, which meant admitting that Earth's conventional forces had failed. It meant putting all their hopes on an untested ship with experimental technology and a crew that had never seen real combat. The secure channel connected after a few minutes, and Captain Jake Morrison's face appeared on her screen. He looked young for a starship captain, maybe 40 years old with dark hair and serious brown eyes. Hayes had chosen him personally for this command, reading through hundreds of personnel files to find someone with the right combination of tactical brilliance and willingness to take impossible risks. "Admiral Hayes," Morrison said, "I assume you've seen our test results." "I have." "Are you ready for deployment?" Morrison nodded. "The ship performed better than expected in all trials. My crew has been training for 18 months and they know their jobs. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter says the antimatter containment systems are stable, and the quantum fold drive has been tested successfully at ranges up to 50 light-years. What about your weapon systems?" "Lieutenant Amy Brooks has been running firing drills for weeks. The antimatter pulse cannons can punch through any armor we've tested, and the point defense grid can handle multiple incoming missile strikes. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Hayes looked at the tactical display showing Zephyrian fleet movements throughout human space. Red dots marked enemy positions advancing steadily toward Earth itself. Intelligence reports suggested they were massing for a final assault on the Sol system, bringing together the largest alien fleet in recorded history. Once they controlled Earth's orbital shipyards and manufacturing centers, the war would be over. Captain Morrison, I'm authorizing Operation Darkstar. You will take the Blackstar to the Kepler 4042 system and engage the Zephyrian fleet there. Our intelligence indicates they're using that system as a staging area for their assault on Sol. Morrison's expression didn't change, but Hayes saw him swallow hard. The Kepler 442 system was where Admiral Chen's task force had disappeared. Whatever was waiting there had been strong enough to destroy 12 of Earth's best warships without even sending a distress call. Understood, Admiral. What are our rules of engagement? There are no rules, Captain. Use whatever means necessary to stop them. Your ship represents 3 years of research and development, along with resources we couldn't afford to spend. Don't waste it on half measures. Yes, ma'am. We'll make it count. Hayes ended the connection and turned back to the observation window. Another transport ship was launching from the station's docking bay, loaded with refugees fleeing the approaching Zephyrian forces. Soon there would be nothing left here but empty space and debris. She thought about the Blackstar and its crew of 800 volunteers. They were humanity's last hope, an experimental ship heading into battle against impossible odds. Most of them would probably die in the next few days. But maybe their sacrifice would buy Earth enough time to evacuate the core worlds or negotiate some kind of surrender that didn't end with humanity's complete extinction. The communicator buzzed again with another casualty report. Hayes ignored it and kept watching the stars, waiting for news that would either save her species or confirm its doom. The USS Blackstar dropped out of quantum fold space right in the middle of the largest alien fleet that Captain Jake Morrison had ever seen. The view screen showed hundreds of Zephyrian warships stretching across the darkness, their hulls glowing with the purple energy that powered their weapons and shields. Morrison counted at least 300 vessels, including massive dreadnoughts that were twice the size of Earth's largest battleships. Holy hell, whispered Lieutenant Commander Steve Johnson from the navigation station. There's got to be half their fleet here. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter's voice crackled over the comm system from the engine room. Captain, our stealth systems are holding. They don't know we're here yet. Morrison studied the tactical display that Commander Ryan Phillips had pulled up on the main screen. The Zephyrian fleet was arranged in a defensive formation around a large space station, probably a supply depot or command center. Their ships moved in slow, predictable patterns, clearly not expecting any human vessels to appear in this system. Brooks, what's the status on our weapons? Morrison asked. Lieutenant Amy Brooks checked her console and looked up with a grin that didn't hide her nervousness. Antimatter pulse cannons are charged and ready, sir. Point defense systems are online. We've got enough firepower to take out a dozen of their cruisers, maybe more if we get lucky. A dozen out of 300 isn't going to win this fight, Phillips said quietly. Morrison nodded. The math was brutal, just like every other engagement in this war. But the Blackstar wasn't designed to fight fair. Its quantum fold drive could teleport the ship short distances almost instantly, and its weapons could destroy enemy vessels that conventional Earth warships could barely damage. The key was speed and surprise. Johnson, plot micro-jump coordinates. I want us behind their main battle line in 30 seconds. Carter, route all available power to weapons and shields. Brooks, target their command ship first, then work your way through the heavy cruisers. Sir, are you sure about this? Phillips asked. Once we open fire, there's no going back. Every ship in that fleet will be shooting at us. Morrison looked at his crew. These people had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. They could have requested transfers to safer assignments, could have found ways to avoid this deployment. Instead, they were here, ready to take on impossible odds because Earth needed them to. Atlas. Decloak the ship and begin the attack. The artificial intelligence that controlled many of the Blackstar's systems responded immediately. Decloaking now, Captain. Targeting solutions locked on primary threats. The first indication the Zephyrians had that death had arrived in their system was when 4 of their heavy cruisers simply vanished. The antimatter pulse cannons fired twin beams of pure destruction that unmade matter at the quantum level. Where the alien ships had been, there was suddenly nothing but expanding clouds of elementary particles. Alarm signals began broadcasting across Zephyrian frequencies as the remaining fleet tried to figure out where the attack was coming from. Morrison watched their formation start to break apart as individual captains panicked and began evasive maneuvers. "Jump us to grid 7-7, Morrison ordered. The Blackstar disappeared from its position and reappeared 3,000 kilometers away, directly above a squadron of Zephyrian destroyers. Brooks fired the pulse cannons again, and 6 more alien ships disappeared in flashes of brilliant light. "Sir, they're starting to triangulate our position," Johnson reported. "Plasma cannon fire incoming." Purple energy bolts began filling the space around the Blackstar as dozens of Zephyrian ships opened fire. The human vessel's kinetic barriers absorbed most of the incoming energy, but Morrison could feel the ship shuddering under the impacts. "Another jump. Same grid pattern," he said. This time they appeared behind the alien fleet's left flank. Brooks targeted a group of supply ships and fired, eliminating 8 vessels in a single volley. The explosions from their cargo holds created secondary blasts that damaged nearby warships. Carter's voice came over the comm again. "Captain, the quantum fold drive is heating up. These rapid jumps are putting a lot of stress on the system. How many more can we make? Maybe a dozen before I have to shut it down for cooling." Morrison did the math in his head. They had destroyed 18 enemy ships so far, but there were still almost 300 left. Even with the Blackstar's advanced weapons, this was going to be a long fight. "Phillips, what's their formation doing?" "They're trying to surround us, sir. Looks like they're learning from our attack pattern." Morrison watched the tactical display as Zephyrian ships moved to create a sphere around the Blackstar's last known position. It was actually a smart tactic. If they could predict where the human ship would appear next, they could concentrate their fire and overwhelm its defenses. "Brooks, switch to cluster rounds. Let's see how they like fighting multiple targets." The antimatter pulse cannons fired again, but this time each beam split into dozens of smaller projectiles that spread across a wide area. The cluster rounds tore through an entire squadron of Zephyrian fighters, destroying 24 small craft in seconds. The alien fleet was starting to adapt, though. Their commanders began spreading their ships further apart, making it harder for the Blackstar to destroy multiple targets with each attack. They also started using more random movement patterns, making it difficult to predict safe jump coordinates. "Sir, we've got a problem," Johnson said. "They're launching some kind of net around our position. Looks like an energy web designed to disrupt quantum fold travel." Morrison cursed under his breath. If the Zephyrians could prevent them from jumping, the Blackstar would be trapped in normal space where the aliens could use their superior numbers to overwhelm it. "Carter, can we punch through their disruption field?" "Not without risking a complete drive failure, sir. The quantum coils aren't designed to handle that kind of interference." The situation was getting desperate. The Blackstar had destroyed over 40 enemy ships, but the remaining fleet was learning how to fight back. Purple energy bolts were coming closer to hitting them with each exchange, and their kinetic barriers were starting to show stress fractures. "Atlas, give me a tactical analysis," Morrison said. "Current enemy losses are at 14% of their total force," the AI replied. "Projected time to eliminate all hostile vessels at current engagement rate is 4 hours and 37 minutes. However, probability of Blackstar survival beyond the next 12 minutes is only 18%. Morrison looked at his crew again. They were all watching him, waiting for orders that might save their lives or end them. Outside, the Zephyrian fleet was closing in, ready to destroy the ship that had killed so many of their comrades. But Morrison had one more card to play. Captain Jake Morrison watched the tactical display as the energy web tightened around his ship. The Zephyrians had learned fast, but Morrison had been expecting this. The alien fleet thought they had trapped the Blackstar, but they were about to discover that humanity's secret weapon had more than one trick. "Brooks, overload the pulse cannons and fire directly into their disruption generators," Morrison ordered. "Carter, prepare for emergency fold jump on my mark." Lieutenant Amy Brooks targeted the 6 Zephyrian vessels projecting the energy web and fired both antimatter cannons at maximum power. The beams tore through space and vaporized the alien ships instantly. The disruption field collapsed and the Blackstar's quantum fold drive came back online. "Jump us out of here, Johnson. Take us to the edge of the system." The ship vanished from the middle of the alien fleet and reappeared near the outer planets, safely away from the concentrated firepower of 300 angry Zephyrian warships. Morrison used the breathing room to assess the damage and plan their next move. Casualty report, he said. 17 injured, no deaths, came the response from the medical bay. Hull integrity is at 86%. The kinetic barriers took a beating, but they held. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter appeared on the bridge, her uniform stained with coolant fluid and her face streaked with sweat. Captain, the quantum fold drive needs at least an hour to cool down properly. Those rapid jumps pushed it way beyond safe operating temperatures. Morrison nodded. They had destroyed 43 Zephyrian vessels in less than 30 minutes, but the cost had been significant stress on their primary systems. However, the psychological impact might be even more valuable than the physical damage. Atlas patched into their communications network. I want to hear what they're saying. The ship's AI accessed the alien frequency bands and translated the Zephyrian language into English. Panicked voices filled the bridge speakers as enemy commanders tried to understand what had just happened to their fleet. Unknown vessel used some form of teleportation technology, one voice reported. Our weapons could not track its movements. Request immediate reinforcements from the home fleet, another commander demanded. This human ship is unlike anything in their previous vessels. All units maintain formation. The enemy ship has withdrawn but may return. Morrison smiled grimly. Fear was spreading through their ranks, and that was exactly what he had hoped for. The Blackstar couldn't destroy 300 ships in a direct engagement, but it didn't have to. It just had to make them afraid. Johnson plotted a course to the Vega system. Intelligence reports indicate they have a supply convoy moving through that area. Sir, that's on the other side of Zephyrian space. It'll take us 6 hours to get there. Perfect. That gives us time to repair our systems and let word of this engagement spread through their fleet. The USS Blackstar jumped away from Kepler 442, leaving behind the wreckage of 43 alien warships and a fleet commander who was already sending desperate messages to his superiors. The human ship that had appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly had shaken the confidence of an empire that had been winning the war for 3 years. 6 hours later, the Blackstar emerged from quantum fold space near the Vega system and immediately detected a large convoy of Zephyrian supply ships. 60 vessels moved in a loose formation, escorted by a dozen warships. The convoy was carrying food, ammunition, and replacement parts for the alien fleet preparing to assault Earth. Brooks, are the new ammunition types ready? Morrison asked. Yes, sir. We've got penetrator rounds for heavy armor and cluster rounds for groups of smaller targets. Chief Carter's people worked miracles in the manufacturing bay. Morrison studied the convoy formation. The supply ships were large and slow, designed for carrying cargo rather than fighting battles. Their escorts were positioned to defend against attacks from conventional human warships, not something that could appear anywhere in the formation without warning. Begin the attack. Target the escorts first, then work through the supply vessels. The Blackstar decloaked in the middle of the convoy and opened fire with penetrator rounds. The specialized ammunition punched through Zephyrian armor plating like it was made of paper. 4 escort vessels exploded in rapid succession, their reactor cores breached by the antimatter projectiles. The remaining escorts tried to return fire, but the Blackstar had already jumped to a new position. Brooks switched to cluster rounds and targeted a group of supply ships. The rounds spread out over a wide area and destroyed 8 vessels. Simultaneously, panic spread through the convoy as alien captains realized they were under attack by the same ship that had terrorized their fleet at Kepler 442. Some tried to run, pushing their slow cargo vessels to maximum speed. Others attempted to fight back with whatever weapons they had available. Morrison watched the tactical display as his ship systematically destroyed the entire convoy. Jump fire, jump again. Each attack eliminated multiple targets while giving the enemy no opportunity to coordinate an effective response. Within 20 minutes, 60 Zephyrian vessels had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Any survivors? Morrison asked. Negative, sir. Complete destruction of all enemy vessels. The captain nodded with satisfaction. The convoy had been carrying supplies for thousands of alien soldiers. Without food, ammunition, and spare parts, the Zephyrian fleet would have to divert resources from their planned assault on Earth. Johnson, where's the next target? Lieutenant Commander Steve Johnson consulted his intelligence reports. Wolf 359 system, sir. They've got a mining operation there that's been supplying raw materials for their shipyards. Set course. We're going to make sure they remember this day. Over the next 2 weeks, the USS Blackstar conducted a campaign of terror throughout Zephyrian space. Mining facilities, supply depots, communication stations, and isolated patrol groups all fell victim to the ship's devastating attacks. The aliens never knew where the human vessel would appear next or what target it would choose. At the Wolf 359 mining complex, the Blackstar destroyed 43 asteroid processing stations and their defensive platforms in a single engagement. At the Tau Ceti research facility, they eliminated an entire scientific expedition that was developing new weapons technology. Near the Proxima Centauri system, they intercepted and destroyed a fleet of hospital ships that were carrying wounded Zephyrian soldiers. The psychological impact of these attacks spread throughout the alien empire. Crew members began refusing orders to serve on isolated vessels. Supply convoys required larger and larger escort fleets, which drained resources from the main battle groups. Zephyrian commanders started questioning orders and abandoning their positions rather than face the possibility of encountering the human death ship. Reports reached Earth of Zephyrian fleets withdrawing from advanced positions. Colonies that had been preparing for siege found their attackers pulling back to more defensible locations. The alien empire's coordinated assault on humanity was falling apart as fear of the Blackstar spread through their ranks. Admiral Catherine Hayes received these reports with cautious optimism. One ship was changing the entire course of the war, but she knew the Zephyrians would eventually adapt. They would find a way to counter the Blackstar's advantages, and when that happened, Morrison and his crew would face the full wrath of an empire that had been humiliated by a single human vessel. The message from Admiral Catherine Hayes arrived on an encrypted channel while the USS Blackstar was drifting in the empty space between star systems. Captain Jake Morrison read the intelligence report twice before calling his senior officers to the bridge. The news was both good and terrifying. The Zephyrians have made an alliance, Morrison told his crew. They've partnered with the Krillian swarm. Commander Ryan Phillips looked up from his tactical station with concern. Sir, the Krillians haven't been seen in this part of space for over 50 years. Intelligence reports say they're completely different from the Zephyrians. Different how? Asked Lieutenant Amy Brooks. Morrison brought up the classified files on his main screen. Images of organic-looking ships appeared, their hulls pulsing with veins of bioluminescent material. The Krillians use biotechnology instead of metal and electronics. Their ships are grown rather than built, and they reproduce by splitting like living cells. A single Krillian vessel can become 2 ships given enough time and resources. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter whistled softly. That explains why they disappeared from the border regions. They were probably building up their numbers somewhere in deep space. How many ships are we talking about, sir? Lieutenant Commander Steve Johnson asked from the navigation station. Morrison scrolled through the intelligence estimates. Conservative guess is 3,000 Krillian bioships, plus whatever's left of the main Zephyrian fleet. They're massing at Proxima Centauri for what looks like a trap designed specifically for us. The bridge fell silent as everyone processed this information. The Blackstar had been successful against conventional alien fleets because of its superior technology and surprise tactics. But 3,000 ships was beyond anything they had faced before, and the Krillian biotechnology was completely unknown. Sir, this is obviously a trap, Phillips said. They want us to attack their combined fleet so they can overwhelm us with numbers. Morrison nodded. That's exactly what it is. But look at what they're protecting. He changed the display to show the Proxima Centauri system. At the center was a massive space station, larger than anything Earth had ever built. Dozens of smaller installations surrounded it, connected by streams of ships and cargo containers. It's their primary command center for this sector, Morrison explained. If we can destroy that station, we cripple their ability to coordinate attacks on Earth's remaining colonies. The war might not end, but it would give humanity time to rebuild our fleets. Carter studied the tactical display. Captain, even with our advantages, those numbers are impossible. 3,000 ships means millions of weapons firing at us simultaneously. Our kinetic barriers can't handle that kind of firepower. I know, but we can't let them keep that base. Intelligence estimates they're planning to launch their final assault on Earth within the next month. If we don't stop them here, there won't be a human species left to worry about. The crew exchanged glances. They had all known this mission was probably a one-way trip, but facing 3,000 enemy vessels made their survival chances essentially zero. Still, none of them suggested retreating or finding an alternative target. What are your orders, sir? Brooks asked. We go in fighting. Atlas, begin calculating quantum fold coordinates for the Proxima system. Carter, I want maximum power to weapons and shields. Johnson. Plot us the most unpredictable approach pattern you can manage. The USS Blackstar jumped toward its destiny, carrying 800 crew members who knew they were probably about to die. The ship's AI systems ran continuous calculations, trying to find some tactical advantage that might give them a chance against impossible odds. When they emerged from quantum-fold space near Proxima Centauri, Morrison understood that all their previous battles had been minor skirmishes compared to this. The combined alien fleet stretched across millions of kilometers, organized in defensive layers around the central command station. Zephyrian dreadnoughts formed the outer ring, their purple energy weapons already charging for combat. Inside that perimeter, thousands of Krillian bioships pulsed with organic light, their living hulls shifting and adapting in real time. "Sir, I'm reading energy signatures unlike anything in our databases," Johnson reported. "The Krillian ships are generating some kind of biological weapons." Morrison watched the tactical display as organic projectiles began launching from the bioships. Instead of conventional missiles or energy beams, the Krillians were firing what looked like living creatures that moved through space under their own power. Evasive maneuvers. Brooks opened fire on the nearest formation. The Blackstar's antimatter pulse cannons fired into the alien fleet, destroying 6 Zephyrian cruisers with the first volley. But the response was overwhelming. Thousands of purple energy bolts and organic projectiles filled the space around the human ship, creating a deadly web of incoming fire. "Jump us to grid 47, Morrison ordered. The ship teleported to a new position and fired again, eliminating 8 Krillian bioships. But more organic projectiles were already tracking their new location, and some of them seemed to be learning from the Blackstar's movement patterns. "Captain, the biological weapons are adapting," Phillips reported. "They're predicting our jump coordinates." Carter's voice came over the comm from engineering. "Sir, we're taking heavy damage. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. The quantum fold drive is overheating from constant use." Morrison watched his ship's status displays turn red as systems failed throughout the vessel. They had destroyed maybe 50 enemy ships, but thousands remained. The Krillian bioweapons were getting closer with each attack, and the Zephyrian energy bolts were finding gaps in their defensive patterns. "Brooks, switch to maximum yield cluster rounds. Target their command ships." The weapons officer fired both cannons at a group of large Krillian vessels that seemed to be coordinating the bioship attacks. The cluster rounds spread out and destroyed 12 targets. But the remaining bioships immediately adapted their formation to protect their commanders. Another wave of enemy fire struck the Blackstar, and Morrison felt the deck shake under his feet. Emergency alarms began sounding throughout the ship as atmosphere vented from multiple hull breaches. The kinetic barriers were failing and their quantum fold drive was running dangerously hot. "Sir, we can't keep this up," Johnson said. "The drive will fail completely if we make many more jumps." Morrison looked at his crew and realized they had reached the end. The Blackstar had fought bravely and destroyed hundreds of enemy vessels over the past month, but 3,000 ships was simply too many. They were going to die here, and the alien command station would survive to coordinate the final assault on Earth, unless they tried something desperate. "Carter, what would happen if we overloaded the antimatter containment systems?" Morrison asked quietly. The chief engineer's face went pale. "Sir, that would turn our entire ship into a bomb. The explosion would destroy everything within several thousand kilometers." Morrison studied the tactical display one more time. The alien fleet was concentrated around their command station, thousands of ships packed into a relatively small area of space. If the Blackstar could get close enough to that station before detonating, the explosion might take out a significant portion of the enemy fleet. "Prepare for Protocol Omega," he said. Captain Jake Morrison's words hung in the air like a death sentence. Protocol Omega meant turning the USS Blackstar into the largest antimatter bomb ever created, powerful enough to destroy everything within thousands of kilometers. It also meant that everyone aboard would die in the explosion. "Sir, are you certain about this?" Commander Ryan Phillips asked quietly. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing 3,000 enemy ships surrounding them. The Blackstar was taking heavy damage from the combined Zephyrian and Krillian fleet, and their quantum fold drive was failing. In a few more minutes, they would be dead anyway, and Earth would lose its only hope of stopping the alien command station. "I'm certain. Carter, how long do we have before the containment fields collapse?" Chief Engineer Lisa Carter checked her readings from the engine room. If I start the overload sequence now, we'll have 60 seconds before the antimatter explodes. That should give the crew time to reach the escape pods. Morrison activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor and compartment of the dying vessel. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Report to your assigned escape pods within 30 seconds. This is not a drill. Throughout the Blackstar, 800 crew members dropped what they were doing and ran for their lives. Engineers abandoned their posts as coolant leaked from damaged pipes. Medical staff left wounded patients in the care of automated systems. Marines threw down their weapons and sprinted through smoke-filled hallways toward the pod bays. Lieutenant Amy Brooks looked at her weapons console one last time, then at Morrison. "Sir, permission to stay and coordinate our final attack run." "Denied." "Get to your pod, Lieutenant. That's an order." Brooks hesitated, then saluted and ran toward the nearest escape pod bay. Around the bridge, other officers were doing the same. Phillips grabbed his personal data pad and headed for the exit. Lieutenant Commander Steve Johnson downloaded the navigation logs to a portable drive before following him. Only Morrison and Carter remained on the bridge as emergency alarms blared throughout the ship. The chief engineer was still at her station, her fingers dancing across the control panels as she initiated the antimatter overload sequence. "Carter, get out of here," Morrison said. "Just a few more seconds, sir. I need to make sure the containment fields fail in the right sequence, or the explosion won't be big enough to take out their command station." The tactical display showed Krillian bioships closing in on the Blackstar's position. Their organic weapons were getting more accurate with each attack, and the ship's defenses were nearly gone. Purple energy bolts from Zephyrian vessels lit up the darkness around them like deadly fireworks. 30 seconds until overload, Atlas announced calmly. Carter finally finished her work and ran toward the escape pods. Morrison was alone on the bridge of a ship that was about to become a star. He looked at the view screen showing the massive alien fleet that had been sent to destroy humanity. In a few moments, most of those ships would be nothing but atomic particles. Atlas, set collision course for the enemy command station. Maximum speed. Course set, Captain. Impact in 45 seconds. Morrison sat in his command chair and watched the Proxima Centauri command station grow larger on the screen. The massive alien base was surrounded by defensive platforms and hundreds of ships, all of them firing at the approaching human vessel. The Blackstar shuddered under the impacts, but it kept moving forward. 20 seconds until antimatter containment failure, Atlas reported. "Any final messages you wish to record, Captain?" Morrison thought about Admiral Hayes back on Earth, about the billions of humans who were depending on this mission to succeed. He thought about his crew, who had followed him into this impossible battle without question. He thought about all the people who had died in this war, and all the people who might live because of what they were about to do. "Tell them we kept our promise," he said simply. The USS Blackstar crashed into the Proxima Centauri command station at full speed, its hull tearing through the alien structure like paper. Emergency force fields tried to contain the damage, but the human ship's momentum carried it deep into the heart of the base. Zephyrian technicians and Krillian bioengineers fled in panic as their command center collapsed around them. "Antimatter containment failure in 3 seconds," Atlas announced. Morrison closed his eyes and thought about Earth. The explosion began as a tiny point of light deep inside the command station, but it expanded at nearly the speed of light. The antimatter containment system released the energy equivalent of several nuclear weapons all at once, creating a miniature star that consumed everything within thousands of kilometers. The Proxima Centauri command station vaporized instantly, along with the 300 ships that had been defending it. The shockwave spread outward, catching more vessels as it expanded. Zephyrian dreadnoughts and Krillian bioships simply ceased to exist as the wave of destruction passed through them. The explosion was visible from the edge of the star system, a brilliant flash that outshone Proxima Centauri itself for several seconds. When the light faded, more than half of the combined alien fleet was gone. The surviving ships drifted in space, their crews too shocked to respond to orders or coordinate any kind of counterattack. Admiral Catherine Hayes received the news 3 days later when the Blackstar's escape pods were recovered by a human rescue fleet. 237 crew members had survived the evacuation, including Chief Engineer Carter and most of the senior officers. They brought with them sensor recordings of the explosion that had changed the course of the war. The destruction of the Proxima Centauri command base threw the entire Zephyrian Empire into chaos. Without central coordination, their remaining fleets began retreating to defensive positions around their homeworlds. The planned assault on Earth was cancelled as alien commanders tried to figure out how to respond to the loss of their primary staging area. Within 2 weeks, Krillian bioships began surrendering to human forces, their organic neural networks unable to cope with the trauma of losing so many of their kind in a single moment. The Zephyrian Military Command officially requested peace negotiations a month later, admitting that they could no longer sustain offensive operations against humanity. Earth's government declared victory in what became known as the War of Proxima. Memorials were built on every human world to honor the 800 crew members of the USS Blackstar, especially the 563 who had died when their ship became a weapon of ultimate destruction. Captain Jake Morrison's name was inscribed at the top of the memorial wall, followed by those of every person who had served aboard humanity's most famous warship. The inscription beneath their names was simple but powerful. They entered the war and nothing survived their wrath. They kept their promise. 20 years later, children in schools across human space learned about the Blackstar and its crew, how one ship had changed the course of history through courage, sacrifice, and the willingness to pay any price to protect their species. The legend of the ship that became a star would inspire future generations of humans as they explored the galaxy, knowing that no enemy would ever again threaten their survival, without facing the same determination that had driven Morrison and his crew to their final victory.